Hello Redditors, welcome back to Tales Against Humanity. Now, let's get started. In today's episode, entitled Woman is Furious Because I Went Swimming with My Clothes On. Brother wanted to propose at my wedding final update. Taxes, wedding bells, and insanity. Karen I did not know tried to let her kids steal my family's Easter eggs. Cops were called. Gave a friend my old Apple pencil, and she became pouty because she wanted my new pencil. I live near the sea. Last week, we had an influx of tourists due to warmer weather, and many of them took to the beach. Today, my friend and I went for a walk along the shore in the afternoon, and we sat down on some rocks to chill. My friend is pretty spontaneous, so at some point, she got the idea to go for a swim. She emptied her pockets and just ran into the sea in what she was wearing. After some convincing, I did the same. We'd been swimming for a while when a woman, about 50-ish, approached us and told us to either strip to our bathing suits or go away, because we were setting a bad example. At first we laughed, because we genuinely thought she was joking, but she became aggressive, raised her voice, and continued ranting about how it wasn't normal, that we should be ashamed of ourselves and such. We swam away, but she continued muttering something of herself and, I assume, her family. When we got back ashore, she approached us again and told us we're banned from the beach until we decide to wear normal swimsuits. It's a public beach. No one controls entry by law. What kind of t-shirt and jeans should I wear tomorrow? Story 2. Brother wanted to propose at my wedding final update. Taxes, wedding bells, and insanity. Well, it's been a ride. A fair bit has happened since my last post, so I thought it best to wait till I'm married and settled in after my honeymoon to speak to everyone. Firstly, I want to say that I don't know shit about taxes other than I pay them. But someone here questioned how I could write off the money I was giving to my parents monthly for their mortgage. And I honestly thought I could. But a person who actually does taxes contacted me and said that wasn't possible, or at the very least shouldn't be possible since I don't have partial ownership of the house. And that made me curious that I may be breaking the law. Well, I looked into it. And long story short, the person who was doing my taxes before no longer is. I took my questions to the owner of the tax firm and explained to him that the guy who was doing my taxes was getting me a roughly 1/3 write-off on the money I was paying to my parents monthly. Well, the owner said he'd recheck my records himself and said he'd call me later. Took a few days, but he told me that the guy who was doing my taxes did a few things that he shouldn't, and that he had a previous record of doing this. The firm fired him, and the owner apologized profusely and asked me not to take my business elsewhere. I believe in supporting local businesses and shop from them when I can. So I told him that as long as my records are clean, I'll stay with them. And he assured me that he'll make sure everything is. I do find it stupid the owner didn't fire my former tax guy after his first offense, and I get the feeling he rug-swept a lot of things. But he's assured me that my taxes will be done by him personally from now on, so I'm going to give him the chance to make everything right. Since my last post, my parents have also managed to rent out both of their spare rooms. Both tenants are young women who are first-time renters, and they've each taken a room. Both are pleasant enough, but I've barely spoken to them. My parents say they're pretty good tenants, so we'll see how everything goes. My father has also begun remodeling the attic into another room that they can eventually rent. It's going to be a slow process, as he doesn't have a lot of time to work on it unless it's on weekends, but he's determined to get it done. Now on to the period before my wedding. Well, my grandma went mental. Apparently after I told her off over the phone about a month ago, she went off her rocker even further and actually lashed out at my brother, which is something I thought she'd never do with how much as he loves and enables him. After about a week, a neighbor heard all the commotion and ended up going to check on her, and she attacked him over it. Police were called and took Grandma into custody for a psych hold, and she tried to attack one of the officers as well. But she's a frail little old lady with false teeth. Not a lot she can do to one of them. My parents went in to see her, but visitors weren't permitted until the 3 days were over. And when they were, my parents met with her and told me she was hamming it up playing the victim and trying to get my parents back on her side. My mother said Grandma was still blaming me and also saying that she still had a right to be at my wedding. Well, my mother let her have it by saying that she lost that right after everything she said and did. All the lies and gaslighting, and being mad at me for something as petty as getting married before my man-child older brother that she outright said was her favorite grandson. Meanwhile, my brother was chilling in her house because he had it all to himself until my grandma was allowed to return home. Don't have much information from that point, since my parents didn't bother to see Grandma or my brother again thus far. Next is my wedding. The outdoor venue my wife and I picked was beautiful. There was a good-sized man-made pond with paddle boats and plenty of wild ducks and frogs, though the ducks came right up to people begging for food. We brought some loaves of cheap wheat bread so the kids in the family could toss some to the ducks. The venue was also near a golf course, so kids were having fun hunting for lost golf balls like they were Easter eggs. They actually found a lot of them. That was some good wholesome fun. Yes, I did have security there, and yes, my grandma did show up and try to get in. Even though her invitation had been officially rescinded, she still had the paper one she'd gotten in the mail since she refused to return it after being uninvited. My brother wasn't with her, but she drove 200 miles herself just to try and get into my wedding. She showed up acting sweet, but then turned into a crazy bitch when the guard refused her entry. She screamed out my name and demanded to be let in, and she refused to leave till she spoke to me, until security threatened police. She ended up screaming at him and then waddling back to her car, and that was it for that. But this was not the end to the story. Oh no, because now that the only person still talking to Grandma was my older brother, I guess she started taking things out on him. No family scapegoats left for her to yell at, so she started going crazy on my brother since he was under her roof now. I know this because he sent me a letter since I have him blocked on everything but snail mail. I got the letter after coming back from my honeymoon. It was a letter with a mix of apologies and blaming me. He said he was sorry for wanting to propose at my wedding and sees how crumby it would have been to try that, and that I was right about him being underhanded in trying to ask his ex to marry him in front of so many people, but then said he was angry he didn't get to go to my wedding because I couldn't overlook his traumas. Then he said he was sorry for letting Grandma treat me the way she did for so long because now he's getting some of that himself. Then blamed me for getting Grandma so worked up in the first place over yelling at her and then not letting her into my wedding. Then went on to blame me for our parents kicking him out of their house and being stuck with Grandma because she's driving him up the wall. They didn't kick him out. He left when they wanted him to pay rent properly, so now he's apartment hunting. He had apparently asked my parents to move back in with them, but they outright refused and told him to get his own place. And that's about it on that. And on a side note, my brother's ex-girlfriend still has not reached out or spoken to anyone in my family since she last spoke with me. Not that I blame her. I barely knew her anyway, and we have no mutual friends. I checked her social media recently though, and she seems just fine without my brother in her life. So if she reads this, I'll just say good for you. Live well and don't ever let crazy like my brother back in again. And to my brother, whom I know will likely find and read this soon. Get a life, man. Stop blaming your shit on me and grow up. You're on your own now, and the rest of us aren't gonna hold you up anymore. And if you do manage to date again, don't screw it up like last time. You and I both know why things didn't work out with your ex, and I hope you realize now that running to Grammy and getting drunk won't help you anymore when you're 30 years old. The world doesn't revolve around you, so let it go. As for me, my honeymoon was great. We went on the road and made it all the way to the coast. My wife also insisted we go cycling. I'm not much of a bicycle rider, but it was fun to go a couple miles down a coast road. Ended up dead tired though. Need to get in better shape. Anyways, I'd like to thank everyone here for listening to me and offering their advice. It really helped. Story 3. Karen I did not know tried to let her kids steal my family's Easter eggs. Cops were called. A similar story I saw recently reminded me of this. It happened in 2015, so pre-pandemic. The day before Easter, my wife and I helped our kids make colored eggs. Some we dyed, some we painted, and others were just plastic with candy. But my kids doodled little faces on them for fun. On Easter morning, my wife and I went to my parents' house because they live on the edge of the city right next to some woods. And they got a good 2-acre property with a few scattered apple trees, a garden, a play structure for the kids my dad hand-built, and some decent-sized bushes. Perfect for hiding eggs in. We spent a good hour in the morning placing the eggs in clever but also easy to find places for the kids. We also invited a friend of my wife, who was a single mom with a little girl, to join in, and she was overjoyed we invited her. We took a little break to have a coffee and chat after hiding the eggs, as we'd planned to go out looking for them at noon, since it was a little chilly that morning. But my mom suddenly came to us and said there was a lady with kids she'd never seen before hunting for the eggs in the backyard. and her kids were using the baskets we'd set aside for our own egg hunt. They'd been left sitting by the garden for when the hunt was to start, and those thieving little brats just took them without a care. I told my wife to pull out her phone and start recording just in case. My wife and I have both dealt with entitled people long before seeing stories on Reddit, so having video evidence can really help. We then went outside and I demanded to know just what the hell this woman was thinking. The Karen. Mom was startled when I called out to her, but then got mad at us when I told her to put the eggs back, as she was not invited. Since this was 7 years ago, I'll have to paraphrase most of it as my memory can be pretty garbage at times. Me, hey, what do you think you're doing here? This is private property. Karen, gah, don't sneak up on me. What is wrong with you? Me, what's wrong with me? You're trespassing on private property and letting your kids steal our eggs. By this point, her two crotch goblins had run to hide behind her, and they were blowing raspberries at me. Me, give those eggs back. They are yours. Karen, what's wrong with you? They're just little kids. I couldn't afford to give them a good Easter this year. And when we saw all of the eggs you were hiding, I just thought maybe you could share. Besides, they're just eggs. Go to the store and get more. Me, my family lovingly colored and painted those eggs all day yesterday, and you will give them back. Or so help me. And then the Karen actually slapped me across the face and stomped on my foot at the same time. I got bullied a fair bit as a kid, so it didn't faze me nearly as much as she thought. Plus, she couldn't stomp or hit very hard at all, so all that just made me angrier. And I'm pretty sure she realized she badly effed up, because she started backing away. Me, last chance. Return the eggs now. Karen, no. My babies got them first. I was done with this crap, and turned to tell my family to just call the police. The Karen started shouting at me that we can't call the police over some stupid eggs. My dad then went and blocked the side gate, which is how the Karen had gotten in. We don't know how she was spying on us, and she wasn't even a neighbor to my parents. But when we refused to let her leave, she started screaming hysterically that we were illegally detaining her. The police arrived in about 10 minutes, and by then the Karen had huddled with her kids on the bench by the garden. My wife showed the cops the video of the Karen slapping me, and they quickly told her she was under arrest and forced her kids to give back the eggs and baskets. The Karen started screaming that it wasn't fair, and she just wanted a happy Easter for her kids. Her little crotch goblins didn't make things easy for the police either, as they tried to hit them for arresting their mom. We made a few statements, and the police carted off the Karen and her family. Then we re-hid all of the eggs, which took longer because we had to double-check any places we'd already hidden eggs to see if they weren't there. The kids were all super upset that someone tried to steal their eggs too, and it took some work to calm them down, but they all still got their Easter egg hunt, and all was well. The Karen, though, more or less got off easy. She pleaded guilty and only got a month in jail and a fine. And during court, I found out from her soon-to-be ex-husband that they were in the middle of a divorce that Karen had been intentionally dragging out. After court, we didn't see or hear from any of them again. But I'd like to think that the situation gave the dad the edge he needed in the divorce. And it's become a funny story we like to share with people once in a while. Story 4. Gave a friend my old Apple Pencil, and she became pouty because she wanted my new pencil. I managed to get an Apple Pencil for an amazing price last week. I was scrolling Facebook, and a friend of a friend was selling an unopened Gen 1 pencil for PS35. I went on a whim and bought it, and I now had a spare pencil I didn't use. I told my friend about it at school, and said it she'd like she could have the old one. I bring it into school the next day, as she had agreed, and this was our conversation. Convo, me and EF, entitled friend. Me, hey F, here's the pencil. Begins describing mechanics and what to do. F, oh, it's amazing. But why are there marks on it? Me, oh sorry, it's had a few chomps from my dog over the years. It works fine, though it's only the barrel with damage. F, thanks me and goes quiet. Me, everything all right? You seem upset. F, oh, nothing, it's fine. I was just confused on why I was getting your old pencil. Me, you what? F, I feel embarrassed for saying this now. I just got really excited because I thought you were giving me the Facebook one because you got it cheap. But it's okay. It's still thoughtful. Just not what I was expecting. Me, yet no. I got it off Facebook still unopened and brand new. If you're going to get RC, I'll just give the old pencil to someone who's grateful. She ended up begging to keep it, and kept it anyway. I wasn't about to argue with a petty princess. Not exactly an explosive story, but still thought it'd be a contribution. It's been pissing me off all day, and it's just the obliviousness and nerves that she has that really got me. Edit. Should also add she was given the pencil for free. It still had its extra nib, charging port and box. Literally, just barrel damage. Make sure to like and subscribe for more interesting stories.